to the stream or?
Yeah. So Scott's gonna join the meeting and we can have that.
Yeah, share your screen. This should.
Cool.
Okay.
Look at that.
You join the meeting, Scott?
I need to join the meeting.
Yes, join the meeting, please.
Everything with Teams.
Yes, with Teams.
I can send you the link again.
That started the recording.
Okay, so if you guys can hear us, can see us still, say hello in the chat, right? So you know you're still there. So basically, here we're gonna do right now, as I mentioned, open source is the three main skills, right? So read code, write code, deliver code, right? So the three main skills to make a developer. So the two first skills, right? Read code and write code are fundamental for you as a developer. Because I'm just going to talk here while Scott's preparing there, right? So reading code is fundamental because that's the way you get into any open source project, right? So lots of people say, oh, I want to get an open source project, I want to start to contribute, I want to do something, right? But before you even know what the project does, before you really understand what the project does, right? Before you know how the project is structured, it's very, very hard for you to contribute, right? And remember that, imagine if I call you to my house, right? You say, oh, we're going to have a party here in my house. And then you get to my house and you say, you know what? This sofa doesn't look the right way. So I'm going to move this sofa right here. And then, oh, you have this office in this room. They're in the bad place. So I'm going to switch the office to the room. I mean, do you want that? You as invited me there, are you going to be happy with that? You will not, right? So don't do this in an open source project, right? So when you go to an open source project, the first thing people want to contribute, they want to change things, they want to do things. But remember that there is a host, there's someone, it's right, owner of the project, right? They have their own vision of the things are. They have their own vision of how to do things, right? They don't want you to come and switch things around, right? They don't want you to do whatever you want to do, right? So the first thing you do is that you read code, right? You understand what it says, right? You look at things, right? You learn how the project works, right? So reading code is fundamental.
Shuhari.
Shuhari, right? Yes. Okay, so we can talk about that later. Right? But yes, so then that's one thing. The second thing is once you read the code, you're going to see place where it might have been some kind of improvement, right? And so that's where Jim's project comes along, right? Refactor first, right? So you can actually get Jim's project and put the open source project into Jim's project because then it's going to show you where are the hot places where there's problems with project, right?
Where you can have the most impact.
Where you can have the most impact, right? So then you can start looking at, okay, so if I could refactor that piece of code, right? If I could change things here, how would I do that, right? So then you have to learn how to refactor code, right? So that's why, reading code and refactoring code, that's reading and writing, right? Reading code and refactoring code is such an important skill. Now, this is important for any project you do in your life, right? You join a new company, right? Most people say, oh, Bruno, I don't like to work on legacy code, right? But come on, 99.9% of everything you ever going to do in your life is working with legacy code, right? You're going to join a company that's going to have lots of projects already there. I'm not saying that's old code with old technology. Even new code. You join a company that's using microservice and Java 18, right? Like the latest of everything. But there's a code there, right? That code is legacy, right? It's code that has been written by other people. Not only that, the Java VM, right? The Java language is like 27 years old. I mean, it's legacy code, right? You're gonna join. Oh, I'm gonna do this Spring project. There's a legacy code. It's Spring, right? So there's all kinds of legacy code that we have to deal with all the time. So then basically, you have to learn how to read legacy code, right? To be acquainted with the project. I'm a consultant, right? So my job is to enter projects, right? And people expect me to, I'm just gonna say here, so we're gonna start, yeah, it's gonna recording here. So we're starting part 2 of this recording here, just so I know it. Okay, and so then basically, I'm a consultant, right? So I join a project. Everyone expects me to be to have results immediately, right? But honestly, I'm the guy that knows less about the project because I'm just there for the first day, right? So reading code, guys, is if you know how to read code, know how to understand where code is, right? If you do that, what happens is that you become useful to the project fast, right? And that makes a difference. On open source, that's what Scott's going to be showing us a little bit here. On open source, that's very, very important because how can you help people? How can you contribute to projects if you don't understand what the project is? So getting the project, reading code is very important. And then you can refactor code to learn more about the project. And I'm just kind of battling a little bit here to get Scott on the scene. So guys, is this camera just already picking up there? I mean,
he got his own camera too.
all right, cool. Okay, guys. So Scott's here. So Scott Mearson, he helps out here on the Houston JavaScript group.
Yep, he's awesome.
And not only that, but Scott has this cool project called Keep Calm and Refactor, right? Where he teaches people how to refactor code. So we've used Scott Mearson. Woo!
So I was here a week or so ago talking about how to do software development workouts. And part of that was learning how to read code. And Bruno was talking to me about that and said, that would actually be really helpful if somebody's figuring out how to work on an open source project. And so could you share some info on that? So I will do that. There's this book that basically this information comes from. It's called The Programmer's Brain by Felina Hermans. She's from Netherlands, and she's got a really creative take on how developers think about problems, how they'll approach trying to solve a problem, and I guess how people in general learn new things. And she's got some videos out there that explain it much better than I can. Part of what she has set up is a program called the Code Reading Club. So once a month, they get together and have people just practice reading code. Why do we practice reading code? Well, I will have to ask you. So how many of y'all type most of your day at work? Like you're programming and stuff. So how many of y'all are typing 100 words a minute?
You mean like can type or actually are typing and coding?
Yeah, I mean, do you consistently type 100 words a minute?
I'm like about 120.
120? Okay, excellent. But I noticed that you're the only one in the room who's able to type that quickly. And I suspect that's because most of your typing is the backspace and the arrow keys. The point is that you're not going to improve your skill set and get better at something by doing it at work. At work is a performance, okay? The Beatles didn't get good at what they did by performing all the time. They practiced constantly.
Yeah.
And they didn't just practice in the garage. They would go to bars and clubs and put on shows that screw up all day. And so they got to practice what it would be like to be in front of a big crowd and all the problems that come from setting up and all the things that you've got to learn if you want to be a successful band. They learned that in spades because they were doing 2-3 shows a day. And so they, over the time that they had to practice, they got to be really good. And they would perform once a week, maybe a couple of times a week, but I mean, they were practicing a lot in between the time they performed. Software development is really odd because we very rarely practice. But what do we spend most of our time doing all day? We're reading code. We're reading code that we wrote, reading code that some other idiot wrote, reading code that we wrote when we were an idiot. I mean, we've got to read it so we can figure out what needs to change. And so what I'm suggesting is that if you're going to get into an open source project, you're going to be reading a lot of code just to figure out which way to go. So this system that Felina Hermans has set up is really very, very helpful in developing the habit and developing the skill set of being able to read code and understand it. So what I like to do is to show an example of good code. So what we normally would do is, you basically, you go to the GitHub project, you download it, you open it up. And I like to use Jim's Refactor First project as an example of good code. But what happens is you get to your open source project and this is what you see, because you got to get it all configured before you can build it. And you don't even know which way it's up. And I've got to go and include all these things. I don't have my library set up properly just by downloading it. It can be a problem. But, it's an open source project. I can go in there and fix it if I want to. I can go in there and make it all be very smooth and easy. If Jim won't approve my forward. But there is a very interesting tool that Felina Hermans has put together, which is this code annotation tool. You've got basically code that is as if it were printout. She's got another tool that will allow you to print out code like this in a PDF, so that it's just plain code. And you can go through here and look at the code and start to measure. Okay, so we got this goes all the way down. Oops. Okay. You can basically highlight a variable. So you got this repository thing here and make that blue. Because I think they like the color blue here for some reason. So you can see where repository is used. It's just text. And I can, by reading the code, I can quickly get an understanding of what it's about. Now, if I've got it working in my IDE, this will quickly give me the highlights. Okay, this is my text. And then when I've got a variable selected, then it'll find all the other ones that are there and highlight those. So that's really quick. So once you get the IDE working, this is a great way to very quickly get an understanding of how the code works and what it does. Other really handy tool I like is this little doodad over here. This gives you a thumbnail overview of the whole code base. And it is a plugin that is called Code Glance Pro. There are a number of different Code Glances out there. This Code Glance Pro is the one that seems to be most updated most recently, and it's got the most support. I get an update for it at least once a month. So they keep it working and fix issues with it, which is really nice. But you can quickly see how this is a nice small class file, and it's well structured. There's not, you can quickly see there isn't any duplicated code in here, and that it's everything is pretty compact. There are other projects I like to use as examples of poor code, and one is, my favorite is this slide tool that it's a Reddit reader. It's an Android product, and so it's been around for at least 10 years. It's been written mainly by one developer. There's a number of people who've contributed to it. But this is my favorite class file in the project. It's got 5,357 lines of code in it.
Did you want to share your screen on the meeting as well?
Am I not doing that?
It looks like you may not be.
Thank you, Jim. I'm sorry about that, guys. That's not the screen I'm going to be sharing. No, No, don't share that.
So let's do the Teams meeting down there at the bottom.
See that Teams meeting right there, that one?
Can you join there or not?
No, that, I couldn't get that to work.
Okay, got
So
it.
it's in one of these here browser things.
You're in the meeting.
I hear you.
That's good.
In the meeting.
Yeah, you're in the meeting, but you're not sharing your screen. So
There
fine.
it is, right there.
Okay, great.
Yeah, right, okay.
It's in that other browser.
Yep. All right.
Okay, now you can see. I
Sorry, I
can see
didn't-
you.
Didn't see that.
It's
either. So it's not, I'm not seeing it sharing now.
So try again, go back there.
You gotta, that's right, you gotta share it and then you gotta pick it.
Right, yes,
Yes, that one.
right, okay, so we have window, if you want
There we
to,
go.
or.
Okay, all right, and now we are sharing, yes.
Appreciate that. All right, so, so anyhow, I was explaining about this, this code lengths tool and how it can show you issues at a glance. You can see, first you can see that this is a very, very long piece of code. And it's got this amazing zigzag that just blows your mind. But also you can like.
It's mesmerizing.
You like-
It's mesmerizing.
It's mesmerizing.
And not in a good way.
But you can see like this section here, there seems to be, got this sort of indent and a little tiny indent. And there's an indent and a little tiny indent. Go up a little bit, you got indents and these indents all look to be very similar. And so that looks like duplicated code to me. So if I go down here and look at it, I can see that we're more or less doing very similar things here. Set on quick listener, the find view by ID, but this isn't the one that I was looking for. Sorry. There are a number of places where there's code like that that's duplicated. And
This is not the code you're looking for.
ugly code to the, okay, so this is what we were fighting with the other day here. So, this is like,
Click handler? Those are one of the.
No. no, this is very large section. See how we got this group of stuff right here. On back pressed, you can door layer, complicated library, stuff. Down here, you've got a similar thing. Dash cube got,
Interesting, Code Glance Pro could like detect the copy pasted code from within that SAM file.
right. So, you know, we've got this sort of a thing happening regularly. Just by scanning up and down with code lengths, you can see that. So, there. So, it's a handy tool to be able to say, okay, this is a place where I can probably remove some duplication. This is a place where, you know, it's easy to see that sort of thing. This, you know, you can also quickly see that a pile of variables. This is a place where I can probably extract some methods because look how deep in it goes. And I can quickly get to that. That's what I like to use code glance for. This is another one of the methods, which is smaller. Sorry, one of the class files, which is smaller. It's only 300 lines. But you can, again, quickly see through code glance that you got this one, looks a lot like this one. This one looks a lot like this one. This one. And so you can see that they got some duplication there again. This code looks a lot like this code. And so you can quickly see, all right, this is where I can spend some time helping out. So you want to help out. There are different ways that you can help out. Here. So this again, this code annotation tool, by using it, you can using the IDE, we're able to lean. You can forget the API that you're using because you do a control enter or alt enter and tab and it goes and types most of the stuff. That's another reason why you can't touch that 1,000 characters. But also you'll find yourself unable to remember, okay, so what is the name of that function? Is it a size or is it a length? Do I put the parentheses on the end of this one or is it the other one? I can't remember which one's a method call, which one's and so little things like that start to slow you down because you don't remember them because the IDE remembers it for you. If you use tools like this to start analyzing your code, it will help you to think harder about what you're doing, and it'll help you to notice stuff that your IDE isn't pointing out for you. So like the IDE pointed out that there's these 2 repositories down here that I completely missed when I first looked through it. Well, I'm going to have to actually go through and read this code and look for stuff so I can notice things like that. And then I can highlight. You see, I can highlight a whole bunch of different colors in here so I can keep different variables. And another cool thing is I guess I just draw one. I'm supposed to be able to draw one. You can do that, but there's supposed to be a way to draw a line here. I forgot how to do it. I'm sorry. I haven't been using it for. But you can show how different variables are related and how they're used in other methods inside the object. So that way you can go through and clean it up, say, okay, these are the only methods that use these variables. I bet we can extract that out into a separate object if we really needed to. Now, if you're going to be looking, if you're not sure what kind of a project you want to join, and you're new at this open source thing, I really am impressed with what Jenkins. You scroll down to the bottom here, and it's got a link called contributing. You can then see where do you want to contribute. You're going to do documentation. You want to code. You want to review. You want to write tests. You want to help out in however many ways you can. You connect with other people. Great. They've got a whole description on how to do that. Okay, I want to do coding. Well, what part of Jenkins do you want to code on? And frankly, I'm really not sure. I'm a newcomer. Well, I'll come over here to the newcomers, right? And it's got newbie-friendly issues in Jenkins Jira. So these are all the issues that will probably be easier to fix. And the old guys don't touch it because they'll be able to fix it in a couple of minutes, but they want to get the new guys up to speed. Good first issues that you can look at in GitHub. A beginner's guide to contributing. If you've not worked in open source, this is a gold mine of helping you get started. They got videos. If you're outreach programs. So if you want to talk to somebody else who's figuring this out or somebody who does know how to do it, you can do that. I'm really impressed. I've not seen any other open source project that works this hard to help people get up to speed in learning how to contribute to an open source project. So, so this is, I kind of gush about Jenkins. I guess the other tool that I like to show off as good coding practices is the approval tests project. But
what's it called again, just to make sure people hear it?
Approval tests.
All right.
Yes, I go here to approvaltests.com. See, I only have to type A and it goes right there. But it's written in a number of different languages, and you can click on Java and it'll take you straight to the GitHub. And you can grab the code, you look at the docs, and it shows you how to get the Maven include, how to get the Gradle include, and this is all kept up to date with the latest version. So you're always getting the latest and the greatest here. And you can see all the tests that have run, it's all green, so it's all working. But this is cool. And here's mine. So,
See, there's I recognize that picture over there.
yeah, that's an old picture. But yeah, one cool thing I like about this is, you know, you can see he keeps, this is a longer class. This is basically the main class that you would call approval tests. Approvals.verify is what you call most of the time, and there's 1,000 different parameters that you can pass. But he's got 1,000 different one-line functions that go and package everything up to make it easy for the user to use. You also notice down here we've got what?
It's a facade.
Right. Sorry, I need to know my
It's okay.
design pattern. But, you know, he's got a number of things down here that are deprecated. So why is that? Well, because people have been using it for a number of years, and he doesn't want to just leave them hanging. They continue to use it, and so he deprecates it, so tells new people, you don't want to use it, that's not going to be very efficient, we've got better ways to do that. And it's all, I've been working with him to make sure that it's very well documented, so if there's anything that anyone can, I'll get it fixed. But it's good to look at good code to see how other people do things. There's lots of really helpful, very creative open source code out there that you can learn a tremendous amount from. Especially if you're working as an employee at a company for a number of years, you'll tend to look at the same code base for years, and it's mostly stuff that you've done, because you know you're fastest at fixing your bugs. And so everything kind of looks the same. So if you want to look at how other smart people are doing things, you can look at open source and start to read it and start to understand it. It's a great way to practice. And as you start to, if you find a project that you're really interested in, as you start to understand how it works, that will help you to be better at how you develop your software. You'll learn different ways of going through the software development lifecycle. How do they do builds when you check things in? What does their code review process look like? Maybe I can improve how we do it at work based on how this open source project is. They've got people all over the world contributing all different kinds of times. They don't have like, okay, on Thursday, we check everything in and push it.
That's frightening.
I've worked for companies that do that.
Oh my.
But you push it to the integrator, he's got to figure out. Yeah. You don't want to. Okay, but that's pretty much what I had to say. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or comments?
Oh, it's good. Probably get a copy of that.
That, it's a really good book. I recommend it. Lena's a really smart person. She's a professor at the University of Leiden. And she's been working on this kind of research for many years. I'm gonna go find that book again.
Table of contents, just that's.
Yes.
So you talk a lot about reading code, right?
Yes.
But one of the things that both you and Jim discuss a lot is that it's about refactoring code, right?
Yes.
And so can you talk a little bit about, how refactoring code can help you with open source?
I talked a lot about it.
I know you can, but just giving it some.
Well, Well, I mean, obviously, all these projects, open source projects are written by somebody, they're labors of love. Okay, they're not written by somebody who's gonna be, he has to get a release out because the company needs it done and that sort of thing. And they work on what's interesting to them, because why do it if it's not fun? Sometimes they'll fix the stuff that has to be done, but mostly they're doing what's interesting to them. And most developers don't find refactoring interesting. I don't know why. I just, it doesn't compute for me. But I find it very entertaining. But you can find, I mean, especially in a project like Jenkins, it's ancient. It's been out there for, yes.
So I actually mentioned Jenkins in a presentation I gave,
Mhm.
and a dependency cycle analysis was done on it,
Yeah.
and it was a huge hairball.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I said, I don't know about you, but I don't know where to start. If I were to look at this, and I wanted to go help it out, help out the project. Yeah, it's a mess.
Cool tool called Refactor First.
Yes.
And that will probably give you a really good idea.
Give you a good idea, yeah.
But yeah, for those of us who are new, again, they've got the links to say, look at this code, these are easy things to fix. Cool. What would be really helpful, I'm sure, is if you write unit tests for some section of code that doesn't have unit tests.
Yeah.
Nobody really enjoys writing unit tests for untestable code that doesn't have any tests on it. You write unit tests for that, they will love you, especially if they're right.
They're good unit tests.
Yeah, if you're gonna write crappy unit tests, then you're gonna have to get the crap in there.
Is it null? Oh, no, it's not null. Okay, great. Yeah, no.
Seriously, you write the unit tests for something. You what's called a characterization test, where it's what Michael Feathers talks in his Working Effectively with Legacy Code. Talks about characterization test, where basically you take a section of code. So let's say I decide I want to help these guys, and they've got this long method down here near the bottom. No, it's near the top. There it is. We've got this long method that. It's a long one in here. Come on. There we go. I'm looking at the
Main activity.
Thank you.
Oh,
I
there
got
you
this
go.
long thing in here, and I decide I want to start cleaning it up and make it easier to work with. And we started doing this last Wednesday. Okay, we could probably break this out. We probably turned that into but the thing is that we're not sure that making that change is not going to break it. But if I'm able to put a characterization test on it, which is basically locking down the code, I pass in whatever parameters are needed to exercise every line of that code. And ideally, I'll like run a pit test on it.
What's a pit test?
Pit test, that's I couldn't remember what it was.
Mutation testing?
Yeah, it's a mutation test. It basically, you'll write a unit test on some code, and then you run it through this
PyTest.
PyTest, and it will go and modify certain parts of the code to see if your tests still exercise that code, or do they get passed over, which means that you need to be a little more comprehensive in how you're testing things.
Even more testing.
Yeah.
Bad joke.
Yeah. But thank you for letting me know. Okay, so so you would ideally want to write effective unit tests on the code before you go and start changing the code, because otherwise the guys who are having to approve all the changes that you make are going to have to look at your code and decide whether or not they trust it. And if you haven't contributed before, then chances are they're not going to waste their time. They're just going to say, I don't know what he's done. looks like they changed a key piece of code, not gonna worry about it, reject it. But if you've got tests in there and you've got it well documented saying, okay, I've tested this, I've got all these various cases and everything is covered. And so you get those tests checked in, then they say, wow, he's great. And you check in some documentation. You do that a few times where you're not really putting anything at risk, they'll start to trust you. And then you can go through and start cleaning some of this stuff up and they will fall in love with you. Because nobody has the time to do that. They're busy fixing bugs and adding new features. Because nobody wants to work on old code. And I don't know why. That's what we do all day long. If you can find a way to have fun working on old code, you'll stop working. It's just all day long fun.
Play golf.
Yeah.
See how few steps you have few steps it takes you to get something cleaned up.
Right. Yeah, you can, like Mary Poppins says, in every job that must be done, there's an element of fun. Find the fun and the job's a game. So I won't sing. But really it's the refactoring tools that we have in here are really helpful. They automate stuff. If I can do this, then it will automatically, because I don't have it. But it will recommend, you can clean this up by creating a lambda instead.
You don't have it on the class path.
What?
So it looks like it's not on the class path declaration.
Yeah.
We're reading it.
Yeah. Well, I've learned I don't code a lot.
It's tough.
Yeah, but yeah, if you learn all these, you look at all of the refactoring methods that are automated in IntelliJ, they really work hard to do this. So you can pull a method up into its class, push it down into a class from being a separate thing. You can extract variables and constants and parameters, all kinds of neat stuff. If you get those mastered, ideally, if you get them mastered by the keystrokes, it really makes it a lot of fun. You can start getting really productive at adding unit tests to legacy code. And frankly, the tool that I find most helpful for adding tests to legacy code is this approval tests tool, because the way it works, I didn't come ready to demonstrate it, but I can do that. Yeah, it's not here, but oh yeah, I can go to for instance, we've got our favorite refactoring exercise, the Gilded Rose, right? The woman who wrote this is Emily Bosch, and she's got it written in dozens of different languages. She put together a set of videos walking through how to get approvals to verify how to use approval tests to test the code you've got here. So I basically started doing that, and I wrote an approval test to go and start testing that. What you do is you basically pass a string to the approvals verify method. So what this does, this is going to, this Gilded Rose thing, it's this ugly code that's pretty much unreadable. And it's got an item object, and you have to go in and modify it. It's stored and figures out what to do with the items. So what I do is I say, okay, I've got these items that I'm gonna pass in. And in this case, I'm gonna run this. I pass in the item named food and a 0 for the quality and a 0 for the whatever the other item thing is, the spell in, which I think is needs to be sold. So we got an insertion failed. So for whatever reason, this is not finding my diff tool. This will automatically bring up what's different in your diff tool. And you see what's going on, what the difference is. So what I can do is say, okay. Shift inserts. Not you. It's here. We copy it. This is going to be worth it, I promise. And then copy it. That's that. Oops. There we go. Now I can run my test. The gilded rows. Boom. Right. My test passes. So I can run it again. So we can now do code coverage on it. Oh, that's right. I added the test knit revert plugin, which I won't talk about that. So basically, if the test fails, it goes back to changes. If it passes, then you check it. So of course, it helps you develop the discipline to do very small checks. But for whatever reason, where's my coverage? Why is it rerunning things? What's running? There we go. So you can see what bits of code I've got working. The cool thing about approval tests, check this out. Go to my test. This is a combination of approvals. What I do is I call this function and I pass the parameters that I need to, and I can quickly see what I can have it quickly generate new parameters. So if I look at this, I can see what didn't get run. This here where it says aged breed. I'm going to add aged breed to my test. Check this out. So I've got food. Try and code live. See how easy it is. So I just add an extra string here. I run my coverage test again. It failed. So I look at what failed. Well, I've added a new thing here. And if my, gotta figure out what I did wrong. Here. Triggers. Okay, so this here. Here's my terminal. I'm sorry about this, guys. There it is. And then I run my test again, it passes. Go to my test. Go to my code, I can see that, all right, so H3 got checked, but not this backstage passes thing. Now I can grab this. Put it in my test. Run it again. And now this automatically generates another example. You don't see a difference. So now I've got 3 tests. If I get that working, it gets to be magical because now when I run it, I'm a little further along. You can see, basically, we've got this quality of 0 and a quality of 50. So if I come in here, my test, I can pass in, got names, I'll add an integer, it has to be an object, array, all qualities. Equals. And it should be a 0, well, it needs to be around 0, -1, 0, 1. There was a 50 in one too, right? So 49, 50, 51. Okay,
You put 105,
105.
it's not 50.
Okay. So this is the cool thing on it. Stop whatever it's doing, because whatever it's doing is wrong. We're going to run it again. This is what I was wanting to get to. Oh. So I need to names. Qualities. Quality is quality. Take out the 0. Now we run it. It will fail again. If we look at why, it's going to generate 18 different cases.
I'll build permutations.
It does all the permutations based on it. It's amazing. It's a really cool tool. That's just one of the things. There are dozens and dozens of like functions. And I've done presentations on this. I need to start recording some training sessions. This is really a great tool to help you quickly add tests to code that you're not familiar with. You notice I have no idea how that code works, but so far, if I go and look at it, I've got how much of this here? How much of this is covered?
83%.
83% code coverage. I don't know how it works. And so there's there's a handful of options I need to add to get it to cover everything else. But anyhow, yeah, then once I start doing that, I can look in here and I say, okay, this items thing, good grief, items survive everywhere. Maybe we can refactor that. Maybe I can change that to be like, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be just editing it. I should be using my refactoring tools. I get my item sub I, Control Alt V to turn that into a variable. Replace all 34 instances of item sub I. Now I just got item. That makes it easier to read. So take this open source code and you can start refactoring. It's just a really handy way to approach it. Anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Wanted to show you. I'm sorry it took me so long to get there, but
Yeah, what I think is very cool is that, you know, this learning how to read the code, right, and experimenting, and this, the little thing that Scott showed here, it's so powerful in terms of you becoming a better developer, right? Because now you're understanding better the code, you know, you're applying testing, and you're building things, right? You're integrating this with your CI/CD process. I mean, everything, all the skills that you need to actually be a good developer are embedded into that. And the cool thing about when you're doing this in open source project is that the open source project already have some of these things set up, right? And so then you jump right into a professional development process, right? So the question we had in the beginning is that is this for Vadim was asking this in the beginning, right? So is this for growing your career, or is this for whoever is starting, right? It's for both, right? Because you're going to be a better developer, I understand those things. But if you're starting, you get immediately. It doesn't matter if you're working right now or not. Doesn't matter if your company does this or not. But you get immediately immersed into real development process, right? With other people, with other teams, with CI/CD settings, with testing. So all of these, and so you're not just alone, kind of learning by yourself with little test code, right? You're actually learning with real code that exists and real projects exist.
Thanks.
All right, so thanks a lot, Scott.
Thank you, Bruno.
That's great. So then the other piece they were talking about here in terms of I'm just gonna come here because then it shows up. So the other thing they were talking about, so three main skills, right? Read code, write code. Scott talked a little bit about both of that, and then also deliver code, right? So Elio, can you come here and start setting things up? And you're gonna need to be on the Teams.
He already is.
You already is? Okay, cool. Right, so then you can just share your screen. Cool. So thanks a lot, Scott. So the other part is delivery code, right? So delivery code, there's all kinds of issues with code delivery. We're not gonna be able to talk about everything here today, right? But Adio, Adio works for Harness. That is a company that does DevOps and tools and development metrics tools. And good. Almost there. All right. So Ed worked for Harness. And one of the things that Harness have is this project. What's the name of the project again? LitmusChaos, right?
Actually, one of the co-founders for Harness.
Yeah. So it's a project to do chaos development, right? Chaos engineering, right? So basically the idea that you can throw some chaos into your project, right? See if it stands, right? Very, very, very famous discussion about this is the chaos monkey, right? There's this little piece of code that goes into your production system, or maybe your testing system you prefer, right? Just kind of start turning things off, right? Disconnecting things and creating some chaos and see if your system is able to stand up to all the issues, right? So that's part of when you deliver code, you want to make sure that whatever you think you're delivering is able to withstand problems, right? So that was chaos engineering is all about. And so we're going to hear a little bit more about that from Adio. So is that all good? Can I just pass to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so with you guys, Adio Silva.
So actually, I have like 50 slides. So actually, I'm just kidding. I don't have that much in English. So I was thinking on just actually just talk a little bit about it, and if I can convert one person to use chaos engineering into their CI/CD pipeline, that would be great. So that would be my target here. So the first thing is, how many of you already hear about chaos engineering? Like not only Chaos Monkey or chaos, but how much of you do or see a project that you actually do that on your day-to-day basis?
I've heard of it, but I haven't really seen it in practice.
Awesome. Anyone else? Yes.
Heard of it, but haven't seen it put to use yet.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, it's like, it's one funny thing, right? Because like a lot of developers, they actually hear about it, but they don't actually use it. Because sometimes people think that's just like one thing that the SRE team is gonna do for you. But now like with those new projects, we kind of see the developers get more involved into that. Actually, when I was a developer, I think one of my big differentiators were that I know how my application behavior when someone called me and say, hey, everything's out, we really need to get things back to work. So one of my key differentiators was basically I know what my application behavior. So just to explain it a little bit, what chaos engineering is. Basically, it's a way of testing the system or testing any system. In the basically today, the microservice will work. It's basically testing your service. Also, when I first hear about it, I remember I was seeing this talk from the Netflix guy, and he was standing in the front of the crowd, and I was there, like me and a friend of mine that we were both developers at the time, and the guy was explaining how they would handily shut down a couple of EC2 machines into a production and see how the system behavior, right? If they are gonna have like users report on that, how those things going to behave. And I remember this was like almost 2016 or 2014, I don't remember exactly. And my friend, he was stand by me, and he looked at me and said, hey, that would be great if when we go back, to the company, we could start doing those tests into production. I remember to look into him and say, dude, we cannot enable like JBoss cluster features because our application can handle sections. So how are we gonna flow things into production? It's impossible to do it. But anyways, now I think we are in a bad spot on the technology side. So we have a better process to develop software. We have like probably a better infrastructure to run things. Well, anyways, when we are talking about chaos engineering, one of the things we want to test actually is like how resilient is our system. So, and now with the container world, basically we have a lot of examples here of resilience and the weakness. Basically, one of the pods got evicted from a node, or maybe the node just getting the stage of not ready, right? So we have a lot of those events and that's normal. Or maybe the last, another one's like just a memory leak into my code. Who never did, right? So the idea of the chaos engineer is that basically we have so many layers, right, into our applications. Like we have the MongoDB, the Kafka, Postgres, anyways, a lot of dependence. Also, we have a lot of infrastructure dependence like DNS and many other services. So the idea of the chaos engineering, it's basically once we have the SLOs of the SLAs, whatever is the name that you use to measure your system, it's basically you have that measurement and you introduce a failure of that. So let's say that we have a service that just, we have an API that's going to reply 200 for all the requests. So that would be like my state So just reply 200 for the request and my answer, right? So basically, that's my state. In order to make it into test and to see if that works, basically we need to introduce a failure, right? So I'm gonna, for example, in my API services, I'm going to insert a load, maybe a CPU load or anything else, and see how the system is going to behave, and see if my service is going to still answer 200, right? So if my system is resilient or not. Basically, this is the idea. So I have the measurements, and I'm gonna check if that's gonna work or not. So, but how to do that, right? That's where Litmus actually came into play. Litmus is a kind of open source framework that helps everybody with chaos engineering. So basically, it's a very easy way to apply those into your project, into your code. And I'm gonna basically show that to you. But first, before I get to the demo, and I'm kind of beat up because I drink that nitro coffee outside and very fast. So, but basically, like Litmus, just for you guys to know, it's a very cool project. It's already part of the CNCF project, incubation project. So it means that it's a project that you can really trust and use into your company. And if you see, there's a lot of huge logos that are using those codes. So it's a very nice project. So what it does and what it has for you out of the box, it's basically we have a lot of things to insert failure, right? For example, if we are thinking about like, I want to see how my node behavior if we have like a disk full. So I want to see how my application behavior into that work. Or I have a complex system that I just want to test if I lost like my cards, or if I lost like a database, how this is going to behave. If someone goes to production and delete a part of a database, for example. So basically those things, you can get this ready and just click a couple of buttons and you can kind of insert this failure into your system, right? So, and also the funny part and the great part actually is that it's a multi-cloud support. So you can do this in AWS, Oracle, whatever is the cloud that you're running. Actually, nowadays you can even use into your VM cluster if you need it. So I already talked a lot. I'm gonna demo this very quickly. So, and since we are talking about a lot of different open source projects, I'm gonna use a couple of open source projects to show this one. Basically, this is, if you guys don't know, this is a kind of a website that's maintained by Google. So it's just one project that you can use it to test your stuff. Like if you're an infrastructure guy or a DevOps guy, you need a website to test your thing. You can use this one. So it's basically it's a website. So if we can, we can use it. We can simulate that we are buying stuff like this. I'm just buying sunglasses. I'm gonna place my order. It's a functional website that we can actually use it. So basically I have this website, and this website, it has a lot of microservices behind it. So one of the things that I want to do is actually use chaos. So I'm just going to use Litmus to insert a failure on that and see how this is going to behave. Another thing that I have here, it's kind of a graph planner that's just monitoring the requests and see if I'm basically having 200 or 400 requests here. So we are gonna kind of take a look on those and see how this is gonna change it when we are inserting the chaos on that. So for start, just going to open here my Litmus. It's actually, this is like the SaaS version. It's actually, you can access and you can run a bunch of tests for free. So, but this is the hosted version of it. that we as partners, we kind of allow you guys to just create an account and run a bunch of tests for free. Anyways, one of the things that I'm gonna do, just gonna use one of the simple examples that we have here. I'm gonna go to the Chaos Hub, and I'm gonna search for one of the scenarios that I know that it's already out there. That is basically, I'm going to delete the card. I'm going to create this chaos scenario here. That's fine. Basically here, one of the things that I know, I'm going to add the app namespace. I'm going to put my namespace here. The name of the service I'm going to destroy, it's already here. I have the probe it's just my, how I know that my service is working or not. So basically I put those information here. So in order to know if my service is working or not, I have this URL, and I would just expect the URL to reply to 100. It's not replying to 100, it's not working. So that's how we know that something's broken. So, okay, I'm gonna just type next here. I'm gonna say that this is gonna happen during 2 minutes. And I'm gonna run the test.
Quick question. So is this a real scenario hooked up to like your Granny Bus or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you outlined like all the different namespaces and okay.
And basically how this works, it has one component to install it into the Kubernetes cluster. This is going to read all the namespaces, all the applications labels. That's why I'm able to select that out that here. So basically here, in this case, I only have like one scenario, but I can give a different weights. So this is going to help me on the reporting piece of it. So I'm going to just run it right now and see how this is going to work or not. Actually, a failure here, it's actually working. It means that we just delete the card. But anyways, let's just see. Let's just see this thing running. So let's try to navigate. Turn on working pad. Basically now he's kind of deploying what he needs to do inside my Kubernetes cluster. So he's creating another container to insert the failure, in this case, in order to delete the pod. So basically, we are going to delete the card, right? So basically, probably now we can see something already happening here. Let's see my graph button. We already have something happening here. Those moments when you want to something go wrong, nothing go wrong. Yeah, there it is. So now we already deleted that pod. Okay. Now I'm trying to buy it. I see that part of my website's broken, so that's why I can't kind of do anything. So and I can see that everything is running here. So this is gonna keep for a while because I just put like 2 minutes, but we can see that things already broken. Another thing that I'm just going to create the scenario. I don't think I'm going to execute, but I just want to show to you how it's easy to create this from scratch if I don't have it. If I don't have a scenario already created. So here I'm going to choose the free chaos row because I think there's more scenarios there. I can use it. So basically here I'm starting from scratch. So if you can see it, this is empty. There's no experiments there. So I'm just gonna add a new one. So I'm gonna add, for example, memory, what memory card. So I'm gonna add this one. You can see as a default, he's always going to try to put on the default namespace. So I need to select where my application is. gonna say that I'm gonna add memory to my front end. Okay. All the pods that has the front end. If I want to enable and to add like a probe, I can kind of add that here. And this is, again, this is just like my stage. So basically a way to see if I'm measuring that or not. Okay, that's one. I'm gonna say that I need this to be 200. If not, it's not working. Okay, it's fine. That. I'm gonna add another one here just to show to you one of the nice features that you can see. You can use it here. So everything is going to happen on this scenario. So I'm gonna just adding a CPU usage on the card and also like a memory high usage on the front end. So basically everything is happening on this. One of the things that you can do on this open source thing is that you can put your experiments in parallel, right? So I can create a complex scenario where I'm affecting different microservices and also in different moments or maybe all together, right? So I can simulate like if my DNS goes down or if my database goes out, so I can basically put all the failures together and have a very complex scenario on that. And again, you can just keep adding a lot of different scenarios, right? So now I can basically like stop at EC2 machine if I wanted. And again, everything's out of the box here. So it's pretty neat. Again, for this one and also in the proposal of the time, I didn't set up the probes, so I'm just gonna run it. Like I said, you can give it different weights, so that's good when you're going to see the different results. This is already done, so we already have all the results on the delete experiment. So we can see that for the chaos proposals, it was a failure because when we introduce the failure, right, when we delete the card, my application starts to answer like different from 200. That's why the experimenter failed, which means this application is not resilient enough, at least in this architecture, right? So basically, we can see that it runs like once, and we should be, we should have a better look next time because this wasn't good. But anyways, this is out there, you guys can run it like many different types of experiments for free on this platform. And also, I mean, we have a very good analytics page here where you can compare scenarios, compare executions. So that's really something very good in this platform. And the most important thing, this is for free. So I'm using the hosted version, but you can also install it, all this on your cluster and run it by yourself. So, but again, this is a free thing that it's available out there for you. But just coming back to the slides, the last thing I want to show to you and seeing this is a talk to try to bring people to contribute. So this is a couple of projects that we have in the Litmus that you guys can get involved with. So I would say a very, very easy to start is just create those workflows, right? So you can create, the way you guys saw it, like just delete a pod or just like insert CPU or memory usage into the Kubernetes cluster. You guys could contribute it with another type of examples as well. And we have lots of them, but uh, more is always better, right? As long as we can offer out of the box things, that's better. So, I mean, this is it. I don't want to spend over the time. That's everything I had for you guys today. So I hope you guys enjoy it. If nobody has any questions, we are good. Back to you, Bruno.
So questions for Elio, guys?
So now we can break my cluster, but how do I fix my cluster?
Oh,
That's your problem.
that's a good question, though. You know, after we actually, the logic behind it, it's after we break, we kind of fix.
Right.
So all the failure that we insert, we needed Litmus knows how to get back to the old state. So you were closer.
Self-recovery.
Yeah, so. Awesome.
Cool. Is that good? Questions? All right, so now what it has to do with open source, Elio? That's my question.
The question was, this project is like all open source?
Cool.
And like I said, you guys can get involved and contribute to that. And either is creating new scenarios, creating documentation. So all types of contributions are welcome. So even using and reporting a bug, it's great. So one of the talks that we were kind of seeing yesterday here was that someone asking for people to use their app and giving feedback. And it wasn't even like open source, but it's like, if you use something, providing feedback is a great way of.
Even if it's a complaint is a gift.
Yeah.
Complaints are in a way of validation.
Yes,
You know, are you getting, hey, I would like this feature, that's not working. Well,
yes, exactly.
Unless the complaint is, please don't build this.
no,
That may not be the most useful.
All right, can we turn the lights again on here? Right there. Here.
Yep, that one.
All right, so let me get this back here. All right, guys, so I'm just gonna do a very quick recap here, just so you know where we are, and then, you know, I know we're a little bit out of time right now, right? So supposed to have 10 more minutes, right?
Yeah,
So-
just, you know, a little bit.
Yeah, so just, I just don't wanna extend too much beyond the time that we have here, but so far, you know, the things that we're discussing here, right? We talk a little bit about open source from the point of view of developers, right? You know, the whole discussion about being a giver and how open source helps you to be a giver and have more opportunities. Also how you can use open source as a way to build trust and visibility and reputation, right? And then we talk a little bit about this exact, you know, how companies use open source to hire the top developers, right? So if you participate in open source, you kind of fit on that regards, right? I can talk a little bit more about that. And then we also talk here now, we talk about the 3 things you can do. You can apply in open source projects, right? So, you know, Scott talked about reading and writing code, right? And Elio talked a little bit about delivering code. And so one thing I want to point out from what Elio's talking about is that those tools are awesome, right? They're awesome to use in your project. So they're awesome to use in open source project too, right? So for example, if you get what Scott's talking, the tools Scott was showing, and then you use those tools to improve an open source project, the guys in open source, as Scott said, is going to love you, right? The same thing as the tools that Ed was showing, right? You know, delivery tools in general, right? So think like Jenkins or testing or you know, Chaos Monkey or Chaos Engineering. Those are tools that you can use as, even if you're not participating on the project itself, even if you're not writing code for the project, but you are using those tools on the project to find bugs, to find problems, to find difficulties, then you can use that to create issues, to show people where they can improve the project. Remember that open source developers, they have a lot of things to do too, right? So if there are people helping them out, improving their project in any way, right? So that's a great thing. So let me just gonna give you one example that has been extremely important for the Java community. When when we went on to release Java 8, Java 9, right? That lots of people were worried about backwards compatibility, and not only that, right? So we were trying to make sure that that people would be able to move to new versions faster. And then Oracle started with the 6-month release cadence, right? Where Oracle is release a new version of Java every 6 months. So that became even more important. So one of the things that the Java community did, right, with the help of user groups, but also a lot of efforts around the OpenJDK project. We had this project called Adopt the OpenJDK. So basically what we did is that we went on to create tests, right? So basically we get open source project that already exists, and we compile and run those projects on the new version of Java. So several developers went on to create, Jenkins builds, right? So that would get the whatever project it was, compile the new version Java, run tests on it, right? So just kind of do the build, right? That's all, just compile and run, the build process and the tasks were done on the project already, right? So people just did that to build on, to run on build farms in a way to actually run the tasks on the newer version of Java, right? So then all the failures, right, would be were reported back to the project. So okay, so for you to run your project in the newer version of Java, here are the problems, right? And that really helped a lot on the adoption of the new version of Java, because one of the biggest problems that we have with adopting a new version of Java is not our code. The code that you have in your company, you did it, right? So I mean, if there's any problem, go and fix it. But if you're using Spring, if you're using Jakarta EE, if you're using, I don't know, Log4j, right? I mean, if you're using something else and there's a failure on one of those APIs on the new version of Java, then you're not going to migrate to the new version of Java, because you're not going to go and fix Log4j, right? So just running those things really helped a lot, having the base projects be ready for the new version of Java, and that helped everyone else to run it. So I'm just kind of showing you that's a participation that you can do, even though you're not writing code itself. You're just using those tools to test the projects, and that gives you a lot of visibility. That gives you a lot of information, and it really helps everyone to have a better ecosystem, right? So there's lots of things you can do there. So just kind of make a comment on Scott's and Elio's comments here. But then what I want to go here really quick without spending, going too much over time, is there's 2 more things I wanted to discuss here. Maybe one of them we're going to do a little shorter then, but one is how the best developers participate in open source developers. I'm going to show exactly the trick that those guys use to join in the projects and then what I wanted also to do is take a look at the biggest skills that you need to grow beyond senior developer, and how open source can help you get those skills, right? So just gonna go fast on those 2 things really quick. Just talking about the hiring secret, right? The company that how you get hired on big companies. One thing that I forgot to mention is every single big company. I mean, the most amazing companies in the world, they all have something. They have something very in common. Either they run things on open source projects, right? So they use open source libraries, they use open source tools, they run open source stuff, right? Or, and most probably right? They also have their own open source projects, right? So what I mean by that is that, I mean, you guys know that any company uses open source those days, right? No matter what it is, right? Hibernate and Jakarta EE and Eclipse and whatever, right? And Jenkins and there's so many open source things out there, right, that people are using, right? So but also they run their own source projects. So a friend of mine the other day came to me and said, I said, what is your biggest dream? I said, what is the most amazing things you want to do? He said, oh, and you know what? One thing that I always wanted was to work for Disney. I'm like, man, that's awesome, right? So you want to work for Disney. So, yeah, that's a dream that I have for many years, right? And I said, okay, so let's figure out how to work for Disney today, right? So then we just went on Google, open source Disney, right? And then there's Disney has, I mean, they all have lots of open source projects, right? So, but Disney has this long list of amazing open source projects they have. And just looking at the list, I'm like, I want to work for Disney too, right? You know, I mean, because they have projects like, you know, that's all related to film, for example, right? And doing like a film rendering, this kind of thing. But they also have robots projects and you know, I mean, I'll just look one day when you want to just take a look at their open source projects page, and you're gonna figure out there's so many cool projects out there, and every single big company has something like this, right? All of them, Amazon, Google, Oracle, Microsoft, all of them have a lot of open source projects that either they run or they have participation in. So if you really want to work with any of those big companies, man, just go and take a look at those projects, right? Take a look at if there's anything that they do that you are interested in, you know, because I mean, if you want to work for Disney and you take a look at the project that you're running and you don't see anything that you're interested in, so maybe you really don't want to work for Disney, right? But the other way around, right? Probably if you're interested in a company, when you look at what they're doing, you know, you're probably interested in them because you know they're doing something cool, right? So for example, I want to work for Google, and then you go, so Google is a guy that created and is a big contributor to Kubernetes. Okay, cool. So am I interested in Kubernetes? Yes. Okay, nice. So now I want to work for Google. Kubernetes is an important project for them. It's an important project for me. So I can start participating on Kubernetes, and that will get me what? Gonna get me immediately to start working for Google, or at least with Google people, right? And that's a great way for you to get noticed, for you to get started and all that, okay? So, but for that, then we have to find out, okay, so how do I actually join a project, right? Because I think I'm not sure, someone asked the question, I'm not sure it was you that asked the question, someone asked the question. So how do I actually do that, right? Okay, so let's think about how I actually do. So, first thing we have to understand, right, the thing we talked before, people in open source project, they have their own ideas. You know, they're running that thing because they need it, right? You know, people that build Kubernetes or Hibernate or, you know, Jakarta EE or, you know, anything, right? Or Hadoop, right? I mean, people are doing this because they need it, right? You know, we call it scratch your own itch, right? You know, they need it for some reason, so they're doing it. So they have their own vision on why they're doing that, right? And you cannot walk, you know, if you're working on your projects at your company and your company hires a new person, right? And this new person just walks in and say, oh, this is all wrong. I'm going to change everything, right? Oh, you know, you walk into projects and, you know, someone mentions C#, right? I think you work in C#, right? You know, so you hire someone, the guy comes in, oh, C#, that's not the right language. I mean, let's migrate everything to Java. I mean, you know, that's terrible, right? No, you don't want anyone coming to your project and telling you what you want to do. And you don't accept that to someone you hire to work with you. Imagine someone that's not even works for you, right? So no, you don't want someone comes in and says, I'm going to change things, right? So what you want is people that are willing to work with you, to help you. So here's the trick, guys. How you help anyone. You help them with the things they don't want to do, right? You know, because the things they do want to do, they're already doing because they want to do it, right? But there's many things they don't want to do. They have to do it, right? So for example, Jim here, right? So very concrete, Jim here is a user group leader, right? He's helping out. So he works on the user group. One of the things he has to do, he has to come here, set things up, watch me speak, right? It's like, oh no, Bruno again. Why am I leaving going there, right? It's like, you know, so, but he likes to meet people. He likes to know new things, but there are things that he has to do. Come here, adjust the chairs, right? Call in for the pizza that he does. And he doesn't particularly like to do that, right? No, he's not like, yes, I'm gonna call for the pizza today, right? Like, you know, that's not the main thing that he wants to do. So if anyone said, hey, Jim, you know what? I can help you out. Let me call for the pizza. I'll wait for the guy outside. You can enjoy the meeting. and I'll wait for the guy outside, I'll bring the pizza in, I can do that. You know, Jim is not gonna say, no, that's the best part of the job for me, right? He's gonna say, yes, come on, man, dude, I'd much rather be there watching the speaker and talking to the speaker and receiving the speaker than seeing the pizza. So there are things that we gotta do as a community leader, as a project developer, that we do because we have to, but they're not particularly loving to do. So those are the parts, if anyone shows up and say, I can help you, I'm more than happy to offload this to someone that wants help. Make sense? Right? So think about this in your own project. What are the things that you love to do? What are the things you don't love to do? Now imagine when you join open source projects, right? So you're there not to do what you want. You're there to help the owners of the project to do what they want. That's important. You know, if you want to do whatever you want, you're going to do it in your own project. But an existing project, remember the existing project gives you more visibility, right? But an existing project, you're there to help them do what they want. There's a phrase I like to say for our careers. It's very important, right? So let me see who I'm going to get. So Daniel, can I say something that's going to hurt?
Sure.
Right? Okay, so Daniel, no one cares about you. Right? No one cares about you, man. So people don't care about us, guys. People care about how we can help them to achieve what they want, right? So when you join open source projects, like, hey, I'm a great Java developer, I'm here to help you. No one cares, right? No, really, no one cares, right? So, but if you join in and say, what is it you want? I can do what the things you want. People are more interested because you're there to help. Remember, be a giver, right? Be a giver. Go do something that helps other people. So now, if you approach a project with that idea, I can do things that no one else wants to do, right? So what are some of those things that no one else wants to do? Let's think about it, right? You know, in your project, right? What are the things you don't want to do, right? There's a few ones, right? For example, documentation, right? No one wants to do that. Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. No one wants to do documentation, right? So that's a good example. That's a good place to get started, right? Another one, testing. You know, besides Scott, no one else wants to do testing, right? You know, so, but that's a good thing because then Scott, if Scott likes to do testing, and that's the thing that he wants to be known for, he wants to master, he can go and offer his testing service to any project because every project needs testing, but no one likes to do that, right? So test is another good example, right? Another thing that people, what else? What else you don't like to do that you want to talk about here?
Figuring the pipelines.
Right?
Build pipelines.
Build pipelines, right? Build pipelines. There's no developer like, yes, I'm going to spend the whole day. You know, those are tools that we have to implement. So if you're good at doing build pipelines, that's a great thing. Actually, I have a good friend of mine, Rodrigo Moutinho, right? That he specializes in build pipelines. So he loves to do that, right? So he moved out of Brazil. He now works for one of the biggest gaming companies in the world, doing build pipelines for them, right? So you know, but that is a good skill to have. But I agree with you. You know, the developers don't really want to do that, right? And so, you know, so I mean, anything like this, right? Answer questions from newbies on the list, right? You know, mentoring newbies on the project, right? I mean, all those things are things that some developers like to do, some don't like to do. Presenting, that's where Java's groups, for example, succeed a lot. Because a lot of those developers, they're more focused on writing the code and working on the project than actually going out to present things, right? So if you can present about the project to other people, you become important, right? That's why when Scott was showing the Jenkins page, right? He said all the things that you can do in the Jenkins project. One of them was talk, right? You know, go present about the project, right? Because that's important for the project. So all those things are things that you can just, you know, I'm not saying just come in and say, I'm going to do it, right? But just be available, right? So, and that's important because, you know, it's like, I don't want to join a project to do the non-fun things. So 99% of people think that. And so the 1% of people that think, you know what, I'm doing this because I want to grow my career. Right? I see, you know, you see, remember that I was talking about, you know, when you have a giver, when you're a giver, for you to be a giver that's like an outreach giver, you have to have focus, right? You have to know your results. You know, what are the things that you really want, right? So when you say, okay, I know my results, I want to improve my career, right? I want to get my career the best way possible. So now I'm willing to do the things that were going to grow my career, right? And join an open source project, the open source project that I want to join, right? So you have to choose which project you want, right? The open source project that it's important for me, right? For, you know, for Rodrigo, was important to join Jenkins, right? For Vipin, a friend of mine in India, for him was important for him to join OpenJDK, right? You know, for Scott, he was another project again?
Approval test.
Approval test, right? Because he likes Scott likes legacy code, right? So whatever project, you know, you join the project that's important for you, that you are excited about, right? And then you look at the project and say, I want to be part of this, right? Because here's the thing. Let's say you walk here, you've never been here before, and then you just walk here and say, you know what? The chairs are all wrong. I'm just gonna change things, and you know, I'm just gonna, hey Jim, you know what? I don't even know who you are, but I don't like that the meetups or the user group are on Wednesday. I'm gonna change to Friday, right? Because I think it's better for me, right? You know, it's like, I don't even, what Jim's gonna say, look, who are you, right? I don't know who you are. I don't care about you, right? And you know, and you're not gonna run the user group for me. I'm the user group leader, right? That's what would happen, because Jim would think this is a crazy person, right? But on open source, there's a different way that this happens. When you come and you try to change things, people don't have to tell you that you're crazy, right? They can just ignore you, right? That's what they do, right? So you come in and you try to change things, what they do, they just ignore you because they're not obligated to pay attention to you, right? But now let's change this thing around. You know, let's say I come one day here and say, hey, Jim, my name is Bruno, and I'm here. I'd love to participate in here, right? So I came 30 minutes earlier, right? Is there anything you need help with? Oh, you're adjusting the chair. So how do you want them to adjust it? I'll help you out. And so I adjust the chairs here with Jim. And so, or maybe I stay a little later, right? When everyone goes home and say, hey, Jim, let me help you throw the trash away, right? Let me help you put the chairs back in place. So what Jim's gonna say? He's gonna say, who are you? Right, same thing, who are you? Say, I'm Bruno. Hey, nice to meet you. Yeah, so put the chairs right there. It's gonna be helpful, right? You know, maybe you can join the chairs all in the corner. That's gonna be helpful for me. Or can you get all the boxes? The trash is over there. Can you put all the boxes in the trash? He's gonna guide me to do the things that he does, you know, that he needs help with, right? And then you do that one time. And the next meeting, you say, you know, you come 30 minutes early again, right? And you're here and you help out, right? And then Jim already knows that I'm Bruno. He's gonna say, hey, Bruno, nice to see you again. And then I can help again, right? And then, you know, and then when everything's finished, we can say, you know, oh, how about we go out for dinner? Yeah, let's go out for dinner. So then I meet Jim. I know who he is. He knows who I am. Then, you know, then the next time that a speaker comes, right? You know, maybe Jim can say, Bruno, you always arrive 30 minutes earlier. I'm going to be late today. Can you receive the speaker? Right? Because now Jim knows who I am. And there starts to be a trust, right? So then what happens is that very soon, because there's some trust process, right? Very soon, Jim was saying, yeah, I can always count on Bruno. He's always here, right? So next time, you know, Jim cannot come and say, hey, Bruno, can you come 30 minutes early and put the chairs whatever way you want? Because then now Jim trusts me that I'm going to be here and that I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm not a crazy person, right? You know, make sense? Trust, guys, is like this. We build this little by little. So how apply this to open source project, right? You know, we apply this by you come in and you do things that no one wants you to do, right? You know, you go do testing, you go fix documentation, right? And here's the vision for the other side. The vision for the guy, the owner of the project, right? He's like this. There's this person that has, oh, and by the way, very important, very, very important. When you start, right, you got to make easy for people to trust you. What do I mean by that? if you come in, like, like Scott was talking about, you submit this big change with lots of things in the code. So, and I see that change coming, right? There's a pull request with that change. Lots of lines of code. Look, it's not my job to look at your code, right? I want you to participate in the project, but it's like you had this big piece of code. I'm like, oh man, I need like an hour to understand what this guy did, right? So what do I do? Do I spend an hour doing this? No, I don't do anything. I just do nothing. I ignore it. You can take a look at any open source project. You're going to see sometimes hundreds of pull requests that no one ever look at it, right? It's just sitting there, right? So then, but what if you do something that is easier to approve than to ignore? What could be easier to approve than to ignore? Something so small that the job of ignoring it or the job of rejecting it, it's harder than your job of approving. For example, there is a misspelled word in the documentation. That's a good way to start. Seriously, but you say, Bruno, I want to contribute code, not a misspelled word in the documentation. But let's say you submit a misspelled word in the documentation. So I get that, right? So, or Jim got that in his project. There's a misspelled word in the documentation. So if Jim ignores that, right, he's going to know there's a misspelled word in the documentation, right? It's like, I cannot leave the misspelled word. I have to go fix it, right? So if he ignores that, he has to go and fix it. It's harder for him to ignore. He's just say, yeah, let me just approve that thing, right? He's going to fix a misspelled word, right? So there's this Bruno guy. I have no idea who he is, but he fixed a misspelled word. Okay, so let's just approve that. So then 2 days later, there's another misspelled word. Oh yeah, this guy's fixing all my misspelled word, right? So approve it, right? And then one more time, approve it. And one more time, approve it. So now Jim knows who Bruno is. It's someone that's helping me out, right? And then, so then Jim's like, man, is this guy just gonna approve words, right? Is this a developer, right? And then eventually I do a test, right? Maybe I fix a misspelled word in the comments of a test, right? So there's no danger else. So Jim say, oh, the guy is looking at code now, right? That's good. So I approve, right? And then, so now Jim knows who I am, right? He's seen what I'm doing, right? He's approving my request. I'm different than everyone else. Everyone else, Jim is just ignoring. Now I got it. He's approving things, right? So then I submit some easy fix. Maybe I add one more test case, right? Easy fix. Jim looks at it. Yeah, that's obvious. Yeah, approve. You see, you don't want Jim to be thinking too much, right? Because if he has to think, it's work that he has to do, right? So you're not helping, you're hindering him, right? So he doesn't think too much. Now, we got to a point that, yeah, and look, by that point, most open source project going to be like, yes, this guy's contributing, right? So then they're going to be like, okay, so what's he going to do next, right? Or sometimes they're going to send you a message and say, you know what, take a look at this piece of code here if you're trying to contribute. They're going to suggest you something. And then now you have a kind of little relationship, right? And then now Jim suggests you something, so you're not going to do whatever you want. You're going to do what he suggested, right? Because if he suggested, whenever you submit, he's going to take a look because he suggested, right? And so that's the way you get started. It's where you meet people. You build a trust. And so once you have trust, right, what happens that, and look, a little known thing, guys, but I told you guys here before, most projects have a very small amount of contributors. So anyone else wanting to go to this trouble to really start participating the right way, right? This is not going to be ignored at the beginning, right? Because that's a problem people have. I submit something big, I'm ignored, so now I'm not ever going to participate. I'm not going to submit anything else because I've been ignored, right? So that's the wrong way. So you just do small things. And it doesn't take long, guys. Viping, for example, he submitted like 2 trivial fixes to OpenJDK. And by when he submitted 2, the guys were ready to say, hey man, take a look at this class here and go see if there's anything here that you can fix. they already suggested him something to do, right? And so, so then you build trust little by little, right? And that makes a big difference, guys, because now what happens that people see who you are, and they're going out with you for dinner, right? And they know your name, they know you're interested in participating, right? And they want you to participate, because everyone wants people to participate in the project. That's why we do open source, so we can collaborate, right? And so so if you do that, if you listen first, stop trying to do what you want, listen first, right? Another place that's similar is that you participate on the developers mailing list, and you hear what developers are talking about, right? You hear what they're discussing. Okay, make sense? Right? So start small, do what people want you to do. Let me give another thing that was very interesting for me in terms of the Java group, right? So maybe Jim remembers when that time. Many years ago, we used to have meetings with Sun. Right? Sun would have a meeting to discuss with user groups, right? What I did, I would take notes in the meetings, right? Because it was easy for me to pay attention to the meetings when I was taking notes. So I would take notes, and then when the meeting was over, I would just send the notes to the mailing list, right? And so everyone knew who Bruno was, because I was the guy who was sending notes to the mailing list, right? Because everyone that could not participate would read my notes, right? So it's small things that no one else was doing, right? Taking notes, for example, is a great way for you to participate in things, even on open source, right? Just take notes, right? So it's small things you can do. So if you do this, guys, if you start small and you build up, every single open source project that accepts participation, not every open source project accepts participation, but if you do that way, every single open source project that accepts participation will accept what you're doing. Make sense? And it may sound like, Bruno, that's not what I want. I really want to do code, but that's the way to get started. Because once you do like this, what happens when you submit a fix for a misspelled word? You understand the process. You read the code, you found some bug, you submit the bug, right? It gets approved, it gets built, right? So the whole process, you know how the whole process works. And that's more than most people, right? That most people in the community don't even know that. So now you are part of it, right? And because you're part of the group, right? The more you participate, the more you become part of the group, right? And then once you're part of the group, people want you to help more. They don't want you to help less. They want you to help more. So they're gonna help you help them. Make sense? So that's a little trick, guys, can get you into any open source project that accepts contribution, right? There's some projects that are very complicated. For example, you have to sign contributor agreements for each code to be accepted. So there's some projects that are more complicated, and then you might require to do some other work beforehand, right? But those are the minority of the project. Most projects will accept small contributions like this without much problem. Even Java, right? Java requires a lot of things, but those small kinds of contributions, Java accepts. Even you don't have to sign big agreements to do small. So you can start small in any project. Make sense? Question about this, guys? It's a simple process, but questions about it?
Doesn't just apply to open source. It's a life lesson, right?
It's a life lesson. Yes.
Trust you. Try to see how you can help out in small ways.
You're right. It is a life lesson, right? You can, anything that you want to be part of, right? You should just join little by little, right? Don't come, you don't want, because really the reality is the people that organize those things, they get the most amount of trouble, right? For sure. But also they get the most amount of results. So it's very normal that people that just wanted the results without the work. Right? I'm sure Jim has gone through, we have gone through many of those people in the user group, for example, right? We had a guy in our user group so Java, right? That he never participated, right? But every time there was an event, he would send a message, I'd like a ticket to come to the event, right? And so one day he even sent me a message saying, hey, Bruno, I know I'm not helping much, right?
Yeah.
But, and I know that I'm kind of abusing here, but if you do have a ticket, right, for the event, right? You know, so yeah, so no, there's a lot of people that want the benefits without putting the work, right? So this is a good way. So the first reaction that when you try to enter projects, like, what were you doing here, man? You know, I don't know you. Why you want to get, you know, why you want to get a visibility without, you know, without even knowing, even knowing who you are, right? And you say, but Bruno, but there are some projects that you know, that whatever I send, I get accepted. Yeah, there are, you know, projects that are very small, right? There's a big chance, right? So for example, Jim is the sole developer of his project, for example, right? I'm not sure he's still, but pretty much a sole developer. I'm sure that if you have some good contribution to Jim and sends to him, he's gonna enjoy it and he might even accept it, even though you didn't start small, right? But then from the other hand, right, those are very small projects that don't give you so much visibility, right? So for you to be part of the big visible projects, you're gonna have to start slow and doing things. Make sense? Right? But it works every time, guys. You know, it does work. You start contributing, and then once you're part of the team, everything changes. Everything changes because now that you're part of the team, then because here's the thing, right? You remember that circle, right? Once you become part of the core committers, it's your project. So you are responsible to make those decisions, right? So then that's when you can have the full autonomy. That's when you can actually do more things. Make sense? So just start slow, choose a project that is related to you. That's something that you want to do, and start slow, and that's gonna get you there. Make sense? All right, question.
The resources are GitHub, Bitbucket, and Jenkins, right?
All right, so okay, so yeah, where do I find open source project, right? So by far, the easiest place to do is GitHub, right? GitHub is the place. But I have a problem with those places. Those are places, you know, GitHub and Bitbucket and all this. Those are open source code repositories. There's like millions of things there, right? There's huge, big projects, small projects. There's like projects that someone did and just there, right? There's all kinds of crazy things. So that doesn't help if you're focused. So I would do the other way around. Think about who you would work for. What are the companies you would work for? What are the things that you love to do? So go try to find. So for example, let's say, I'm just gonna get you as an example. You're an engineer, you work for the petroleum industry. So how about you start from there? Take a look at the companies you know, right? You know, the big companies that are working in the petroleum industry. Do they use open source? Do they have any open source project from themselves, right? Is there anything that you can, is there any project that your knowledge is valid immediately, right? So instead of trying to look for this big umbrella of open source projects, go from the companies to the projects, for example, right? Or maybe your friends to the projects, right? It's much easier for you to participate on Refactor first because you know the guy, right? Than it is for you to participate in a random GitHub project. Make sense? So instead of trying to look for all the existing projects, look for things that are near you, right? You know, because that's useful, right? So for example, Scott, it's on the petroleum industry too, right? So go talk with him. You know, go say, hey, Scott, I'm vetting, right? And I'm here in Houston, I'm working in the petroleum industry too. So, you know, how can I help you? How can I help you in your project? You know, Scott has a project, right? It's the, again, approval test, right? So how can I help an approval test? You know, because learning how to do tests is good for me as a developer. So how can I help in approval test, right? And so you know, that's look, this whole thing, it's about relationship, right? You know, everything I'm talking about here is not about technical. It's about relationship. So it's better that you use the relationship you have to enter the project than you just get random project and try to build a relationship. Make sense? So I would definitely do approval tests, refactor first. You know, does anyone else has an open source project here? Oh, Addio, right? Litmus what?
Litmus.
Oh, this Litmus, right? So Addio is on Litmus, right? If you like what he showed here, go talk to him, right? Just relationship, guys.
That's all Java, right?
So Java is a user group.
No, I mean, the language is Java, right?
Oh, the language Java. So it's that, all the projects language Java. So oh man, I'm not gonna remember.
Approval test.
Approval test has lots of different languages in it,
Many
right?
different.
Yeah, so not necessarily everything Java, right? A lot of things is Java here because we are the Houston Java as a group meetup, right? So, but not necessarily everything's Java, all right? But now you said that you work on front end, right?
Yeah.
So what are the open source projects you use? Forget GitHub, right? So what are the open source projects you use, right? Things like React,
Yeah.
right? Or JavaScript, right? So take a look at those projects, right? See if the thing you already use can be a stepping stone for you. Make sense?
I could be very wrong here, but I'm sure React is open source.
Yeah.
If you like React, you could contribute to React.
Right, yes, you can, right? And again, so when you contribute to one of those big projects, a few things, like testing, I already talked about this, but you know what? It's good to contribute on getting started documentation. Right? That's a good thing. You go there and you say, I want to get started, so I'm just going to read the documentation. Just read the documentation, follow what the documentation tells you to do. Like a tutorial, for example. Follow it. Chances are that once you follow it, you're going to find a mistake, right? Most of those tutorials are outdated, right? So you follow it and there's a mistake. There's a wrong command, it's missing something. So you figure out what it is and then you submit a fix on that documentation, right? That's a good way to start. Make sense? All right, so I'm totally out of time here, right?
Yeah, I need to.
Yes, okay, so all right, so here's my promise to you. There's one last piece that I think is gonna be interesting for people that it's about the beyond open sourcing, right? So me, Elio, and Karina, we're gonna start on Monday. We're gonna get an RV and we're gonna start traveling around from here to Las Vegas. We still don't know exactly the exact path we're gonna take, right? But it looks like we're gonna stop in Dallas, looks like we're gonna stop in Oklahoma, right? So we might go, depending on the user groups there, so we might visit different places. So while I do this, I'm gonna record a piece of content for how you can get the new skills from Beyond Seniors using open source, and I'll send you Jam so Jam can spread out for you guys. Okay, so when you talk about Beyond Senior, you have to work what matters, and open source allows you to work on what matters, right? You have to work on engineering strategies, and if you learn on open source, what is the real strategy, the big project you use, you can apply this to your company, for example. That's awesome, right? To a Beyond Senior, you have to manage technical quality. Again, open source projects help you with that because they have to manage technical quality, so you can learn how to manage technical quality for them, right? So it's a good way for you to learn and also help the project, right? You also have to create space for others. And that's exactly what open source is, right? It has, it's a place you can, so if you can find a way to open your own space in an open source project, you're going to learn how to create space inside your company for other people, right? You have to build a network of peers. Again, open source user groups are a great way to build a network of peers. So if you have that skill, you can apply that skill inside your company. So not only you can learn those skills by doing open source, you can apply those skills inside your company to show that you are a more than senior developer, right? And so so all of these is and actually there's one more here that says to lead, you have to follow. Right, so you have to learn how to follow, and that's exactly what we're talking about here, right? So for you to join open source project, you have first to listen to what they want, right? Be aligned with authority. Same thing. In open source, you're going to be aligned with what the guys want before you start being able to do things yourself, right? So all of those things are skills that you need to become a Beyond Senior developer, right? And so open source can help you with all of that. So I'm going to create a content for you guys on this, and then I'll release for you guys later, okay? All right, guys. So thanks very much. Thanks for everyone for being here. It's great to have this time here with you. Thanks a lot. Any question online? Any question for you guys here?
No.
No? All right. Thanks, everyone. It was great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.